I've been working a long time now. I've been working for free. Don't nobody around this town give a damn about me. I've been slaving away all my life to the whip and the chain. And lately I can't help but feeling like I'm going insane. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. I just married my beautiful wife, and I can't pay the bill. And I just wanna buy her a house out in Beverly Hills. How the fuck did I not be on yet? Almost 30 years old. How the fuck did I not be so hot when a nigga this cold? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. I've been down on my luck for some time. How the fuck you got yours when I ain't got mine? Can't you see that I'm not doing fine? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. Give a nigga a break. How much more can I take? Give a nigga a break.
If you don't think that was beautiful, you have no soul. Can I get some evil eye emojis in the chat, please, guys? Can I get some evil eye emojis in the chat? I'm joined almost immediately by a very punctual and awesome guest, Richard Ruach. How are you, sir?
Howdy, I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Excellent. Excellent news. Now, I don't want to get too weird too soon. I don't want to get too creepy with you.
Okay.
Whenever I talk to someone that I have an existing relationship with, we're dating now, by the way. I mean like parasocial relationship with, as in I've watched a lot of their content and I think I know them. I'm always torn between like, do I autistically spurg about stuff like, oh, I know stuff and this guy knows stuff and we can tell, or do I actually lock in, do something a little bit more like journalistic and pick this guy's brains because this guy knows a lot of shit that I don't. You more than anyone else I follow on YouTube have read an insane amount of like, and I'm not talking about you've read more than some people I follow on YouTube. You've read in depth more than like to a level. Do you have autism or not? You seem too friendly.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I was never diagnosed, but I started. I did assistant nursing at one point, and when I started working with autistic kids, they started doing things, and I was like, "Oh my god."
He's me.
I do
me.
that.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where I highly suspect I've got a bit of the drop of the tism.
And I mean that in a good way, by the way. It's almost a borderline superpower. Like it's when that degree of being able to hyperfixate or hyperfocus on something and find a kind of like specialist niche. When did you get into the occult, the esoteric, this kind of stuff? Have you always had a fascination with this world?
Yeah, well, so that's the there's no real origin story towards this besides the fact that I was born with a burning fire for something, and I knew what it was, but I didn't know what it was. So I couldn't I didn't know the word hermetic or Gnostic. So you can't type. I didn't even know that that was a word to type into Google.
Yeah.
So I was just kind of left going around asking people what is this? What is this? And new agey bullshit, fluff. Someone's a Buddhist. They may even be a part of a Vajrayana school, but if they're just an NPC normie, it's not that's gonna translate through the filter of their norminess. So I just floated from Reiki schools, yoga schools, until when I was 19, I actually found something that had something that had substance. But then that thing, it was you find one good book, and then you're like, where did this author come from? And then you find who taught him, and then you find there's an order, and then there's how did that order come into existence? And then you find out that the founders read these people, and then I found my way into the Western tradition, and that's finally, I was like, yes. And so I unenrolled from uni. I was 19. I unenrolled from uni and just did that for 10 years. I had a shit kicker tradie job for a gas company, and I just worked, came home and read occult books and did meditation, and then
No. See, this helps paint a very specific picture, because it's kind of I think someone's origin is so important. When I was talking to you briefly before I went live, and you were saying that I couldn't work out whether you were British or not, because you have this accent, a position that is kind of sounds like posh Aussie. I lived in Melbourne for a bit, so I kind of am quite good at recognizing the accents, but I couldn't work out if you were Kiwi or Aussie or British or whatever. And you explained you have was it your dad's Greek and your mom's
other way. So it's my dad. Well, my dad actually. You want to go real deep?
Yeah.
Both my dad's parents are from Mumbai, so he's Jeet.
Fascinating. So by way of Greece into Australia, or by way of England?
No. So my mum's Greek, and she came to England, was there for 16 years, and both my dad's parents were from Mumbai, but they're not Hindu, they're not Muslims, they're Zoroastrians.
Shut the fuck
So they're
so cool.
Ancient
Holy
Persian.
Shit.
And then ancient Persians from Mumbai. Well, actual Iranian Persians will be they ain't Persian.
Nonetheless, and by the way, there's going to be a lot of autistic tangent side notes in this conversation, right? Good. I was watching something on Instagram today, and I'm scrolling through, and it was at first I thought I was watching horrific war crimes from Ukraine or something, because it was drone footage over this giant, I don't know what you describe it as, industrial, almost looked like a stadium, like a giant concrete bowl, and it was full of human remains, and it was all this Russian text on the screen, and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is I'm witnessing war crime footage or whatever. I had to copy the bio, stick it into Google Translate, and it came back. I said, this is a Zoroastrian burial ground. The tradition is known as the sky burial. So rather than be left in the woods or buried under the ground, get the bodies out of sight. They put the bodies on a tall tower, presumably to be picked up by carrion birds.
Yeah. So Tibetan Buddhists do that as well.
Okay, so it just made me realize I know fuck all about Zoroastrianism. You must be interested in that. I must have
this is the other thing though. The other thing though. There are a lot of books out there, and I have autistically read. I've read more than most, but I'm just one man. Just one man.
Just one guy. Yeah. No, I get it.
When it comes to Zoroastrianism, I actually am quite light. I am actually quite light. I know some. It's
something I'm definitely going to be looking into. That just, I don't know. I think I want to be buried in a sky tower, dude. I'm not going to lie. There's something really epic about it, and weird and grim. Don't get me wrong, but beautiful at the same time.
It's similar to people who just throw my body into the ocean and give it to the fish. It's throw my body into the sky and let eagles eat it, and then I'm
that's so. Then
I'll be in the sky.
Holy shit! I love that. I literally love that. Okay. So what was the first? You said that you read something, but you didn't really go into detail as to what it was that you read that first cracked your psyche open.
Yeah, so actually it was, I've kind of been making some videos on my channel about it, and you can kind of tell if you've read this author before, if you've seen a lot of my old videos, but ironically, one of the first authors I came into contact with was Samael Awan Vior, who's a Colombian Gnostic.
Okay.
Quote unquote.
Can you explain what he is and what all the thing around him is, and because it's so deep in terms of lore, and I'm fascinated. I know nothing about it.
This is some fucking shit, because you can go really deep and crazy. Okay. And the problem is there's two extreme sides. One side is he's a complete fraud, throw him into, plagiarist, throw him into the pit. And there's the other side that's like, you mention his name and instantly their eyes glaze and they jizz in their pants and they're like, oh, Kalki Avatar. And it's like, I'm neither of those people. Guy was a dude. Guy was just a bro. So it's best to say, like, some people are born normies and some people are born with faculties. You know, some people are born and they can just astrally project.
Yeah, true.
Think of him as one of those people. Most people like that. It's a real tragedy that there's this separation between innate occultism and scholaristic occultism. Because a lot of people, especially you see this in New Age psychics, they're like, yes, they have all these visions, but they're like, I don't want to read anything or get into any system because I don't want to
disconnect.
I don't want to be bound by the system. But at the same time, they kind of remain chained. Samael wasn't like that. So he, born Victor Gomez, just a Hispanic boy. And he finds his way into the Theosophical Society and he absorbs Theosophical literature. And for better or worse, he absorbs a Theosophical way of thinking and doing things. And this is interesting because if you know Blavatsky, she participates in a bit of a noble lie. Because Blavatsky, when you look at her, and to give her credit, a lot of people critique Theosophists and say, oh, Theosophists, they don't quote their sources, they just make shit up. And it's like, they have no footnotes. No, that's actually later Theosophists. Annie Besant, Leadbeater, and they're trash. They have their problems. Blavatsky, if you ever look up her horoscope or her birth chart, she's a Leo, so she's a bitch. But she's Mercury. Her Mercury is in Venus. Sorry, what the fuck am I saying? Mercury is in Virgo.
It's always either one sign left or one sign right or the same. So it's always within 30 degrees. Oh, that's fascinating. So she got the meticulous detail-oriented footnotes.
So you see her books. She footnotes shit. She has footnotes all over the place, but she still does participate every now and then. She goes like, and this next bit is from the Chaldean Book of Numbers.
Source, pulling out of our arms. Source, I made it up.
A Russian guy who has a private library gave me the manuscript. Trust me, bro. So she does that shit. And her problem, when you really dig into what she read and you look at her stuff, everyone's like, oh, it's a synthesis in East and West. No. What it is it's a mix of Neoplatonism, bit of Yaakov Boehm, bit of the Zohar. And that's controversial because a lot of Kabbalist people read her work and say, there's two ways of seeing that. A lot of Kabbalah people read her work and say, she's read no Kabbalah, she's making it up. And some people say, no, she's a plagiarist and she's read a bunch of Kabbalah.
And she's taking it from the Zohar. Yeah, that's interesting.
But like Zohar, she's got Paracelsus, she respects Paracelsus and she respects Eliphas Levi. All of the Eastern stuff you see on there is she's clearly got a dictionary of Eastern terms and she's done a paint job. She has a system and she herself also seems to have some kind of faculty, but she plays the game. Like think of when Blavatsky came in to her circus, in those late 1800s, what was around at that time? Around at that time was the spiritist movement, levitating tables. And if you're a person who
seances and fucking
seances, what does telepathy look like physically? It looks like nothing. It's just you receive a message. So if you have some kind of faculty and you come and you're like, hey, I've got some mystical doctrine, and then next to you some guy's levitating a table, ain't no one's gonna pay attention to you, bro. So she played the game. She made some shit up, and that is a burden on the later Theosophical movement. And for better or for worse, that way of doing things absorbed into Samael. So he gets into her stuff really early on, like 15, 16, 17. By the time he's 19 years old, I think it's 19. It's been a while since I studied this, but then he joins the Rosicrucians. And at that time in South America, there's only one Rosicrucian lodge, the FRA, Fraternitas Rosicruciana Antiqua, which is, long story short, a German guy called Arnaldo Krumheller left Germany and was like, hey, yo, there's a new world starting in South America.
I'm just gonna found a Rosicrucian lodge. In which country did
and not only that, he takes the name Hirakocha, so he's like, I'm a reincarnation of an ancient god. Amazing. So he just basically is like, yeah, my spirit is South American. And they all accept him. They all like him. So he starts this FRA lodge, this FRA society, and it
of which
spreads all over.
of which Samael is a member, becomes a member.
Yes, but it spreads all over the place. So I think I'm not sure. I can't really quite remember. It's like there's one in Mexico, there's one in Peru, there's one in Colombia. So obviously Samael is in the Colombian branch. I doubt they ever met physically, but they're, he's in this Rosicrucian lodge. He's learning these Rosicrucian teachings then of like Cromhella, but also around that time. This is the perfect time in history where, think of like 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. Oh, this is peak Eastern gurus, guys with turbans are coming and being like, prior to the hippies, they're coming in and they're going, here's some Kundalini yoga, here's this. And so all of these Western schools are mixing Kundalini yoga with ceremonial magic. And so Samael is in this world. He's in this world. He's in this Western magic, Kundalini yoga. This is what people are talking about. Yeah. And then he's got this Theosophic backbone of, a good cosmology, but then at the same time, ascended masters.
This is okay.
And so clearly he has some ambitions. Clearly he also has some faculty and some original ideas. But what happens is in his Cromhella dies, and Cromhella does the retarded thing that people fucking do. All of these guys do is he doesn't name a successor. So all of the FRA just fractures.
Schisms and right.
And it completely fractures.
And he's one of the faction leaders, or?
No, well, this is just it. He's like, now's my time. Some guy comes from Cuba called Omar Cherenzi Lind. And if you ever look this guy up, it's all in Spanish, but you can Google translate the pages. Some people have done some deep dives into this guy. Apparently he was a Cuban spy and knew like 6 different languages and all this stuff. But some guy called Omar Cherenzi Lind comes and says, joins the FRA, this branch in Colombia, and is like, I am Katumi, the Ascended Master. And he wears a turban and everyone believes him. Everyone believes him. And Samael's like, fuck this guy. And here's the problem though. If someone comes and says, I'm a reincarnation of Saint Germain, I'm a reincarnation of Moria, how do you top that? So Samael basically just goes, you know what? I'm starting my own movement. And guess what? I'm the Maitreya Buddhi Kalki Avatar Christ. So he just straight up just like slaps a bunch of labels on and then just starts writing books. And if you ignore the absolutely outrageous claims and you just get into reading his doctrine, what do you get? You get an interesting synthesis of Rosicrucianism, Theosophy. Later on, he really gets into Gurdjieff. And people say he plagiarizes Gurdjieff, and it's like, look, he quotes Gurdjieff a lot. I'll give him that. He quotes Gurdjieff a lot, but he also does deep quotes. Like, there's one story he lifts straight from Beelzebub about like a scientist who lives in a mountain and has this weird music theory. And that's not like in the intro. That's like deep into Beelzebub. Like Samael read that book. There's some hagiographical or biographical narration of after Samael died, they went through his library of books that he owned. And he owned a copy of Beelzebub, and his copy was just torn to shreds. Like it was like the spine was gone, it was falling to pieces. And there's a 1,000-page book. Every single page had notes in the columns. So the guy really studied that work, and he really integrated that in. So he really synthesized, really aimed to do that. And it's like, so you get a little bit of Gurdjieff fourth way, you get Rosicrucianism, you get Theosophy. And you get some Steiner here. You get
each one of these things, by the way, is an autistic rabbit hole that I want to spug out about with you. Exactly. So this is fucking amazing.
And so here's the thing: in a way, I was lucky. In a way, I was unlucky. In a way, I was lucky. I got to connect to the Western tradition through a guy who could then fracture me out. Into everything.
Give you like a really decent POV where you take a little piece of every. Okay.
Because if I just went into Rosicrucianism, I would have just stayed there. If I just went into Theosophy, I would have just stayed there. But with this, I got the broadest horizon possible, baby.
Now, am I right in thinking that Robert Zephyr is from this same school of thought?
So he has never come out and said that publicly. But when I first started watching this stuff, I was like, this guy's cool. And then over time, I was like, over time, I was like, oh, that's a little sus.
So wait, he's never said it. He's never admitted it. There's little drops in there.
And then just over time, it built up. And I'm just like, nah, he's 100%. If he's not a member of a specific lodge, he respects the master and he follows his doctrine quite cleanly.
And how many members are we talking about? What kind of weight does this organization have today?
So that's difficult as well, because Samael also did the retard thing and didn't name a successor.
Genius,
So
yeah.
when he died, there were kind of five branches that then each branch has meticulously fractured off with each generation. So some of the bigger orders may have an including international members, are in the thousands at least. If
you mentioned someone I really want to talk about, which is this idea of the fourth way.
Oh yeah, let's get into this.
Unless you really understand what I mean, Gurdjieff.
Yes.
Who? Who are we talking about here? Like, who is this guy? And more importantly, I guess, fourth way. There are three other ways that I need to be aware of. Like, what the fuck?
Let's talk about this, baby.
Okay.
Let's talk about this. So Gurdjieff is a really interesting guy because to me, he has this. He creates this trilogy, this trinity of modern Western occultism. You can split it into like Theosophy, Rosicrucianism, and the fourth way. That's the lesser known third brother. So Gurdjieff, he's this guy. He's Greek Armenian, so he's kind of white, I guess. Goes to the
borderline,
east.
yeah. Goes to the east, as in Far East or Middle East.
Well, that's a question. And then when he comes back, he appears in Russia and he says, "Hey guys, I've got a doctrine," and he starts teaching this thing. He doesn't call it the fourth way. He just says it's the work. And he calls it the work, and he starts teaching this crazy doctrine. And it's really interesting. It becomes the movement called the fourth way, but you know, there's a whole kind of strand. He lucks out and gets this one student called Ouspensky, who Ouspensky is a genius in his own right. So Ouspensky's kind of like the Plato to Gurdjieff's Socrates in a sense. But like, and you know, the Iron Curtain comes down and they make out of Russia, and there's all these crazy stories about Gurdjieff, like how he acts and how he does things and how he teaches. So there's a plane going overhead. I'm not sure if it's interrupting the...
No, you're good.
Okay. And it's like, there's all these crazy stories of how he does his teachings. Like, people need to earn the mysteries. And so he would go to like really loud coffee houses and teach in like a low voice. So people would have to like strain to hear. And that would like, so every bit they'd hang on his every word instead of just sitting there and passively kind of taking in the teachings. They would actively have to listen. And he'd do all of this. And one story that always sticks in my mind of them escaping Russia is talking about politics and esotericism. Ouspensky says that Gurdjieff never spoke of politics, but he read the newspapers every day. And when the Iron Curtain came down and they made their escape, as they were making their escape, whenever they came to a checkpoint, if it was Red Russians, immediately Gurdjieff would know what to say. "Oh, my comrade, my brother's in the revolution." And he'd do the handshakes and he'd speak to them and they'd be like, "Oh, brother." And they'd let him through. And then the next checkpoint, if it was White Russians, "Oh, my men, soon the Tsar will lead us to victory." And he'd know it. And then he, not only that, but he knew it so intrinsically well. If they came to another checkpoint and it appeared to be White Russians, but actually it was Red Russians dressed as White Russians, he would know. And he'd just be like, "Oh, my comrades, the Tsar is..." And he got them through. He just got them through. He knew exactly what to say each time. And so he gets them through. He goes to France. He starts this, in Fontainebleau, he starts this center. And he kind of begins to build a lineage. But he has, long story short, he has a car crash and then gives up. And what he does instead of that is he writes the book Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson, which is probably an early sci-fi if you think about it.
Okay.
It is the hardest book to read, but functionally what it is it's designed in a way that if you don't have a fourth way teacher, you can read this book and that book can initiate you. Because before he would say things like, "You need a teacher, you need a teacher." When he had his car crash and he looked around, he was like, "I don't have much time left. And also all of my students are retards." So he made this book, and keep in mind, what's the title of the book? Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. Beelzebub is Gurdjieff. It's not to his son. It's not to his students. It's Beelzebub's Tales to his grandson. Who's the grandson? The grandson is us. We're the grandkids. It skips a generation. Gurdjieff is speaking to us through this book. So that's why that book is important. Now, fourth way. Why did the movement later become dubbed the fourth way?
Yeah.
Gurdjieff basically says, he has this categorization, and he says, in ages past, there were 3 ways which would achieve crystallization. And he uses these terms. He uses the term fakir, monk, and yogi. But here's the thing. Those terms, as we understand them now, don't technically match. It's, if you think about the time Gurdjieff started teaching, 1920s, not many people would have known what the heck a yogi is.
To be honest, I still don't know what the first one is. I know what the other 2 are, but
a fakir nowadays would be seen as a kind of a street magician. But think of you know, in your archetype, in your mind, the archetype of like an Indian kind of mystic who lays on a bed of roses. A bed of nails.
Yeah, running across hot coals, complete mental mastery. Like,
and so the fakir, or the way of the fakir, is the way of the body, or the way of kind of like this physical will. So you see them more
so that's
traditionally.
Mind, body, spirit in the 3 ways.
So, well,
mind,
no,
body,
it's mind, emotions. It's a body, emotions, mind, or intellect.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. The monk being emotions, and the
yogi being the intellect.
Yeah.
And so, if you can think about it like this, like the fakir nowadays would be people like, you know, who like they hold their hand up and for like 20 years and it atrophies, and they just do that.
I've seen that. Yeah, that's crazy. That's like, okay, yeah.
The amount of conscious concentration you would need in willpower to get over that. What you're developing, you're not developing the body in the way of the fakir per se. You're using the body to develop your consciousness to have this strict one pointer.
Okay, yes, got it.
So you could categorize and put people like, you know, David Goggins or someone in the way of the fakir.
Who's going to carry the boats? That's so real. He's just like literally breaking his own feet, running in the
someone who uses the body, not necessarily. It's once again, it's to train the spirit. But you're using the body to train something that's not the body, the consciousness, or something higher. Some higher principle is trained by using the body. The way of the monk is the way of the mystic. It's, you know, this emotional devotion to something higher. And it's only the emotional development. Hence why the monks need to kind of move away from society, or else, you know,
themselves and kind of
seclude themselves, or else your desires, your emotions are fickle. So they need to be cloistered and isolated so that the emotions can become one pointed. And I always say the best archetype, or the best, if you want to follow the way of the monk, there's a book called The Cloud of Unknowing. That book lays out the way of the monk amazingly. So for those who don't know, real quick, The Cloud of Unknowing is a book that was published literally 1,000 years ago in like 1000 AD. It was written by an anonymous English monk who had attained something to another monk who had just begun praying and had started having experiences. And it's really funny. It's a short book, like 70 pages or something. But when you read it, the first letter is just like, do not reveal these teachings to anyone. And I'm like, damn, someone fucked up.
Someone linked it. Yeah, well, that's insane.
But basically, he gives
it's a spiritual like trip report. He's talking about how amazing. His experiences are.
Yeah, it's like you stand on the cloud of forgetting. You forget the world, and then you look up into the cloud of unknowing. Beyond the cloud of unknowing is God, but your mind cannot penetrate it. Only you must turn your heart into like a javelin, make jousts of love. And this joust of love can pierce the cloud of unknowing, and God beyond the cloud of unknowing can touch that. And it's like, and then you have this experience of gnosis that's not intellectual or via reason, but via, that's the way of the monk. And I'm like, that, and so you can kind of see that there. And then there's the way of the yogi. The way of the yogi is one-pointed concentration. It's not necessarily like, you know, a guy doing math calculates with his mind and he makes his mind go into hyperdrive. A yogi does the opposite. In the same way, like, you know, when I said the way of the fakir, you hold your hand up. A fakir also does things where they just sit completely still for 6 hours. So it's like, imagine the concentration you need to have dominion over your body that you don't even move your pinky. In the same way, it's like someone lifting needs to have their consciousness in their body to really get that extra pump, but they're activating their body. But at the same time, the fakir is limiting and restricting their body. So I want to make this clear with the way of the yogi. A guy doing math is activating his mind and has this kind of development. The yogi restricts the mind to a point, and through this restriction, there's this training of higher principles.
That's
and higher cognition can activate, and you can get some metaphysical intuition going, and blah blah blah. Those are the 3 ways,
right?
And they're all imbalanced in their own way. And each one, to do it, if you really want to do it seriously, you kind of got to leave society. The 4th way is not just a synthesis; it's something that can be done in everyday life.
a mystic path for the normies, so to speak.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's a kind of an occult mystic path. It's a synthesis. Because he uses those names, fakir, monk, yogi, but this is already known in Rosicrucian schools, except they would use different terms. They would use, for the physical way, they would say the way of the night, which is interesting because that gives it a little bit more zhuzh.
What do they say for emotions and mind?
Emotion would be mystic, and then the mind would either just call it the occultist or the philosopher, but philosopher in a very particular way, not just someone who studies, I know, French freaking literature and smokes and critiques idols and bullshit, but like the way of the philosopher. And then the fourth one would be called the way of the hearth fire. I've seen it being called that before by occultists, where it's like the hearth fire in the home. You're in the home, hence why it's the way of the hearth fire. And you're doing ritual, you're connecting to things higher, but it's not as extreme as the other three ways, but you strike man on all sides at the same time to achieve a unilateral development. So it's a way that may not have many mystical experiences right off the bat, but it's a way that's slow. So it doesn't attract many people, but the results you get supposedly should be permanent and should be real.
And what's the literature like?
The literature of the fourth way literature? So there's Gurdjieff, who I would recommend not to start reading because
this was going to be my literal next question, was like, how on earth would a normal person even find their way into the, because the way you got into it is so obscure, but okay, makes sense.
I would say start with Ouspensky, because Ouspensky, people talk about him being a mathematician, but he also functionally everyday life, he was a journalist at one point, so he was good at speaking like to people in a way. Or writing in a way that was legible.
So is he kind of he's like the Israel Regardie of the...
basically.
Scribe who kind of...
So he has a book called In Search of the Miraculous, and that's the one I think everyone should first read, and it's basically Ouspensky kind of traveling around, meeting Gurdjieff, and it's about his time meeting Gurdjieff and basically going through, and he breaks up with Gurdjieff, and they have a falling out. 2/3 of the book really good because he describes the teachings really well. There is a bit of a grayness to them though. Like when you read the fourth way teachings according to Ouspensky, there's a kind of gray mechanical lifelessness to them. Like the universe is kind of almost a machine. Whereas when you read Beelzebub's Tales, the universe is more alive. But nonetheless, I would still recommend that you do something else as well as the fourth way, because I feel like Gurdjieff he did something deliberate with his teachings and left it incomplete in certain ways so that you could go into a tradition and it could fit together. So if you were into Raja Yoga, you can do the fourth way and Raja Yoga. Or if you're into Zen, you can do the Zen and Raja Yoga. If you're into Sufism, you can do your Sufi work and the fourth way. Sorry, did I?
It's like a DLC, spiritually speaking. That's
basically. So you can do Rosicrucianism.
How would you describe where you're at? Like, how would you describe what you are? This is I almost hate this question because, like, you're trying to put someone in a box, and then I'm going to assign a bunch of dogma and bullshit to you. But I just mean in general, like, having come through this kind of journey, like, what would you?
It's tough because it's hard.
I identify with words like Gnostic, like
like the lightest one is like I'll say Gnostic, but then the problem is when I say that to normies, people are like, oh, I'm also agnostic, and I'm like, even when you say Gnostic to some people, they're like, oh, so you hate reality, and it's like, no, it's not demiurgs and dualism that makes you a Gnostic. And then it's like maybe perennialist, but then people are like, oh, so you like to colonize and like steal and appropriate things. Jesus fuck. Oh my God. And it's like maybe universal, but then that's gay and a little bit. And it's like maybe archaeofuturist, but then that's so autistic. And when you say that, like, what the hell is even that? And then you have to go, okay, so you know what a futurist and a traditionalist is? No, you don't. Okay, let me explain those and then fuse them together. And then by then they're already like, what? And they've lost the train of thought. So it's tough. So I usually say, I'll let you call me a Gnostic. I'll take that label. But it's like, if you really want to go through it, it's complicated.
How much do you practice the occult versus how much do you, because like you said, there's a worrying disconnect between these things, that there's like a theory cell side of the occult where people have just read a lot, and then there's there is like a overly practical, like delusional, no framework whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, I'm massively influenced by, for example, Austin Osman Spare, but I was fortunate enough to read Spare and to sample his art and to kind of understand him as a person after having read Crowley, right? Like I would have been, if I'd have done it the other way around, I think it would have fucked me in the head, because it's like people just seem to be making stuff up as they go along and with no sense of so that's what I'm kind of wondering, what's the balance for you?
Yeah, so it's interesting, like with Samael, he's quite practice orientated, so I did quite like do a lot of practice. It was only years later when I started reading Raja Yoga books that I was like, oh, I'm just doing Raja Yoga basically. So
okay.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. So I kind of self-taught myself Raja Yoga, because when I read Raja Yoga books, I was like, oh, Dharana, Dhyana. I'm like, oh, wait a second. I know what this is. And I can even kind of understand certain of the later things. And I was like, oh, okay. With my practice in the past, it was much more disciplined. Like there was a period in my youth where I was like, meditating every day, hour a day, 2 hour a day, 3 hour a day. Every single day. Since I've gotten married, things are tough, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie.
So funny.
So, and especially like since COVID, and I've had a lot of personal issues, because once again, I mentioned I was assistant nurse, and when COVID happened, I was like, vaccine, nah, pure blood for life, bro. So I basically got a forklift license. Basically I'm a esoteric forklift driver now. But it doesn't pay much.
There's a book in that. There's 1,000% a book in that. I can just feel it. Like there's definitely a book in that. Okay, fuck, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of ceremony. I've done Raj Yoga.
Right.
But it's like I feel bad because I haven't I myself don't see myself as someone who's attained great things. I've only seen. I would say I'm someone who's achieved a little something like intermediate things. I've had flashes of certain states and things like that. And the reason why I started teaching wasn't because like I need to get out there. It was more of, you look online and who's speaking, at least.
No, really, no, genuinely, who really, because like it's funny when somebody suggested I have like a group chat where we do stuff and I primarily set it up to teach people astrology, but people leave comments in there and content recommendations in there. And a couple of people suggested you, and I went to your channel and of course I'm already subscribed. And I'm just thinking, this world is actually so small. This world of like people who are teaching well, who understand source material. It's like probably 20 channels that you could get it down to, which is terrifying. Like that's actually wild.
And so basically I was just like, you know what? I'm going to piss into the river, and hopefully it's not that I want a following, but it's like, there's someone like me. There's going to be someone like me who's desperate.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I can just be a signpost that like, bro, I'm not good, but here's some real shit.
Fuck yeah.
I want to do that at least. So that's why I started my channel.
Well, that was why I was so interested in your kind of level of. Okay, so I'm a normie. I'm like an 18-year-old kid, and I've decided that like politics is gay and philosophy is gay, and I want to go deeper, and I want to actually like touch the divine and find some meaning in life. Are you going to say to this kid, like, here's a book by Gurdjieff, like, read this, and like, where would you actually recommend somebody start on some kind of journey?
So this is hard because like, my opinion on intro books has changed over time. There's like one video on my channel where it's like top 10 beginner books.
Right.
It's kind of gay now. But I mean, when I look back on that, I'm like, you know what? That's in a way, that's a good list because it's just so generalist. You got a bit of Castaneda, you got Chogyam Trungpa for the Buddhists, and then you got some easy to read Western occult books. Like I'm not recommending read Steiner's Outline to Occult Science first.
Which Western ones made the 10? Which Western ones were on there?
It's been a while since I watched the video, but definitely Dion Fortune was on there.
Yeah.
Because my go-to for if you want to learn about the Western traditional magic, it would be, if you want to immediately go practical, just read Franz Barden, bro. But if you like theory, or if you want to just be like, what's going on with this, Dion Fortune's really easy to read. Dion
Definitely.
Fortune's really easy. She's good,
Yeah.
and she's solid, man. People like, she's old, she's stuffy. I was like, nah, she's good.
Dude, she's not old at all. The shift in her, okay, I mean, she's homophobic, but like her rate, her what do you call it? Her shift
Wasn't everyone back then?
Exactly. Can we give her a break? So I just mean that, like, her redefinition of magic, right? In the way she adds the consciousness into it. She says that magic is in the way that Crowley defines magic as the science and art of causing change to occur in conformity with will, which is, okay, it's a very broad definition, but I like that definition because art is magic, science is magic, these things that really do change reality to conform to somebody's will. But then she adds in this, she says, magic is the science and art of causing changes in consciousness to occur in conformity with will, which I just think is the absolute perfect definition, like by Fortune, to define it. And it's like, okay, you could ask like whose consciousness, whose will, but I think we know what we fucking mean when we say like that is the best definition we're going to get, like practically, of what we're talking about.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think she's fantastic for that, for making stuff understandable, you know, definitely.
And so it's like, it's like Dion Fortune, go read Dion Fortune. She does that thing where it's like, you know, she's got practices, but they're in her novels, and then she's got her theory, which is in her main books. It's like, go for it. They're easy to read. Go read Dion Fortune. We need to bring back some of the old authors. That's what I think, and kind of make a curriculum of classics. That's why I think the three names, Eliphas Levi, Franz Hartmann, and Dion Fortune, are good, because that also shows the three different kind of language branches, because it's like Eliphas Levi for the French, Franz Hartmann for the Germans, Dion Fortune for the British, and that's a good little, and they're all quite different, but they all overlap and touch peepees at certain points. And it's like it works. Okay, it works.
So for you, where's your heart at and where's your head at? Like, what kind of stuff are you reading at the moment? What kind of stuff? Because I saw one of your recent streams and you were talking about hermetic stuff, and I was like, me, he goes in so deep. Like, you go so deep. What's the main corpus of things that you're reading right now?
So what I'm trying to read now, I've got a bunch of books that I want to read, and then I'm trying to get through. Like the four,
I figured that you'd have about 8 different things on the go.
The four books I have open at the moment is actually, I've got Blavatsky's Voice of Silence open. I've actually got Raja Yoga by Swami Vivekananda up, and I just need to finish it. But I'm also reading Ideas by Edmund Husserl, which I'm a fucking idiot, and this guy's super smart. So I'm just
never heard of it. No, okay.
It's hurting. It's painful. This is philosophy though, and then also Evola's the book that on sex that Evola's got. Sorry, let me explain the Husserl thing.
Please.
There in Western philosophy, there is a lie that we're taught that Plato was a rationalist, and then we were all rational, and it's a straight line, and it's just we just became more rational until we get to like the French, and we're just rational, bro. Trust me.
I never thought about it that way, but that is the arc of history bends towards rationalism. Does seem like the biggest cope that we're sold is like the kind of
There is an alternative reading in the Western academy, and there are interesting people who have smuggled in esoteric concepts. So the reason why I'm interested in Edmund Husserl is the way it was presented to me was, so Edmund Husserl was someone who was studying logic, and it's like, you know, that thing where the sciences compete and they're like biology, you know, whatever. It's like chemistry is like higher than biology. And it's like chemistry, physics is higher than that. And then it's like,
wait, maths. Oh my God.
The theoretical math people in the background, like, it's like,
it just gets insane.
Physicists, we're with the math guys are the real guys. But then there's behind the math guys, the people who study logic and set theory. And it's like, yeah, but us logicians. But the thing is, when you get to logic, what's beyond that? And so Edmund Husserl was someone who was interested. He did a bunch of things on history, but he did stuff on logic. And when he got to logic, he was like, what's the foundation of logic? Why is it that, you know, 1 + 1 = 2 or A + B = C? Is that structure permanent, or is there some kind of structure in our mind, in our consciousness? And if there was a different structure, actually it would be A + C = B. And it's like, so he's like, is there a way to study the structures in the consciousness itself?
Fuck, you know, okay, Which is kind of, if you think about it, that's what Jung was trying to do. It's like very poorly, but like it was always trying.
Well, here's the thing. Freud is the guy who like made the big discovery of the subconscious.
Yes.
And Jung then came after that. But it's like what Edmund Husserl was about was using the consciousness to not study the subconscious, but using the consciousness to study the consciousness in and of itself. Basically, he was doing what Gurdjieff was doing, in a sense. But in the academy,
insanely spiritual, isn't it? Like the idea of like you're getting right to the pinnacle of science is logic, and then beyond that, you really need mysticism. Like there is
it's the consciousness, and so it's this thing. It's what's called. I'm not sure if you know the term a priori logic, but it's like science is based off of empiricism, positivism. You only get data from the senses, but like a priori is you can use universal laws, and it's like. You
can reason truths without looking
you can reason truths, you can deduce things. The best example is like the architect example, where it's like you are a retard and you draw something with crayon and you present it to an architect and go, here's my building, and the architect says this will fall down immediately, and you're like, come on man, prove it, let's do it. And it's like no, using universal laws, math and physics, you have a beam that's X long and you're putting a weight on it that's Y, it's gonna collapse. We don't need to do it. I know what's gonna happen. So it's like the phenomenology, it's not anti-science and spiritual, but it's like it just uses pure consciousness itself to deduce things about the consciousness. And it's like, so I became interested in that. I wanna study Edmund Husserl to get that. And then there's all these names that pop up after that, like late Wittgenstein, anticipated Husserl, and Henri Bergson was this French philosopher that was before Husserl, but actually some of his ideas like connect to Husserl's. And then you look in the history of magic, MacGregor Mathers, the founder of the Golden Dawn, his wife, Myona Mathers, is the sister to Henry Bergson.
Fuck off!
And you're like, really?
So crazy.
And then all of these, and it's like, where did Bergson get his stuff from? And then you look at, and you hear names like Schelling, who gets left in the dustbin of history because Hegel and Kant are taught, not Schelling. They don't teach Schelling, who's all this esoteric about the darkness of nature. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And then you look.
I'm still getting over Mina Mathers being the fucking, like, what did you say, the sister? Or...
Yeah, Mina Mathers is the sister of Henry Bergson, the French philosopher. The philosopher of intuition.
I'd heard the name before. Maybe that's where I'd heard it before. It just rang a fucking bell for me. That's crazy.
And then it's like, where did he get his stuff from? He also got it from Leibniz, and Leibniz has all this esoteric stuff. And then it's like the German philosophers liked, Meister Eckhart, and then Meister Eckhart really tracks back to Plotinus.
Really need to read the Christian mystic Meister Eckhart. 100%.
Yeah.
Plotinus I have read, but I haven't read the latest, the Christian stuff. That's fucking interesting.
And so it's this thing of, we go from Platonism to Aristotelianism, rationalism, and then we make this hop, skip, jump over thousands of years to Descartes, and then we go Descartes, maybe to learn Hume and things like that, but Descartes to Kant. And then after Kant, we either go into the analytical school, which is Bertrand Russell, where he's just jerking off over math and logic, or we go into the continental, where it's the gay French philosophers who, what's the problem with the French philosophers? They're all Marxists, which is neither here nor there. The main problem with that is they're dialectical materialists. So they're what Golden Dawn rituals,
follows
that's bourgeoisie superstition, and they're not going to participate in that.
That's so real. Okay. So what's in place of this lie that we've been sold then, that this rational exponential curve towards rationalism? Like what's his real version of events, if you like?
So whose version of events? Or like there's basically just an alternative current in the academy. There's an esoteric philosophical, I would say there's a hermetic philosophical lineage that continues through the academy, not necessarily by teacher, but just by ideas. An idea that then fertilizes in someone's mind, and then their doctrine gets read, and it continues onwards. And so it's like Leibniz, Schelling, Bergson, Husserl, and then after Husserl, you could say someone like Heidegger. But then after Heidegger, who do people go to? People go to Merleau-Ponty, but Heidegger had another student. You know who Heidegger's other student was? Henry Corbin, who I am not sure if you... Henry Corbin invented the term the imaginal, and he was a traditionalist in the traditionalist school of René Guénon alongside Voller and all of those guys. He left Heidegger to join the traditionalist school.
Dude, you see what I mean? You're like a Wikipedia fucking database. Like, how the fuck do you keep all this stuff in your head? Like, that's.
But here's the thing: amazing. I haven't read Henry Corbin yet.
Okay,
I'm trying to get through this all. I'm trying to read.
No, but there's a serious question underlying this, right? How much philosophy do you think the average occultist need read? Because a detachment from it is folly, literally. But then obviously there's an overindulgence in it to the point where you start philosophizing everything, that's occult.
Look, I would say if you like modern philosophers, read your modern philosophers, read read Camus, read Kierkegaard or whatever. But it's like, if you want to do occultism, I would say you should have a leaning towards Neoplatonism, or at the very least, go to Plato and read, the Timaeus, the Critias, because of Timaeus for cosmology and Pythagoreanism, Critias for Atlantis, Phaedrus and Symposium for Eros, and all of that kind of stuff.
Dude, this is so good. Some of the those of you who are in the Black Library, just write down everything that Richard is saying right now. What other from antiquity should people read as foundational from that same kind of?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's like I would go with you should have a foundation like world mythology, because that's something that Jung says, and that's something that also Gurdjieff echoes as well. So the quote from Jung is, "The man without a myth is the man who's missing a limb." And Gurdjieff, in his system where he talks about man as with different cylinders, you have an intellectual cylinder, an emotional cylinder, a motor cylinder. And in each of the three ways, only one is trained. But there are also higher cylinders. And that's what spirituality is. It's the lower nature or the lower system needs to get to a point where it can connect to the higher. But it's like, he says, myth strikes the higher cylinders and can create flashes. And so it's like, reading the world myths and that kind of thing. It's like, Epic of Gilgamesh, all of that kind of stuff.
100%,
all of that kind of stuff has the Inanna goes to the underworld. The tale of Psyche and Eros. That myth is beautiful. It has a whole esoteric bent when you read it. You can feel it.
What's your favorite myth? What's your favorite Greek myth?
Psyche and Eros.
Okay, tell us the story of Psyche and Eros.
Off the top of my head. Okay, so let's go. So there's this girl, and she's so good looking, bro. She's fat. She's good.
This is Psyche.
So good. This is Psyche, and she's so good looking that a literal goddess Venus starts going like, holy shit, people are going to start worshiping her instead of me.
So this is female intersexual competition, but with the gods.
Yes.
Okay. Amazing.
So it's very interesting because in this story, Psyche is the human soul, and the demiurgic thing that oppresses her is Venus.
Oh, I fucking love that. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because usually the human soul is the knight, the masculine, that then awakens the feminine principle. But in this, it's reversed.
Other way around. Yeah.
It's Psyche is the female, the human soul, and Eros, the masculine thing, is the spiritual principle that awakens it. But nonetheless, so we get Psyche. Venus is like, she needs to die. So because she's so hot, also no man will approach her. All the guys are just like, bro, she's an 11 out of 10. I'm not even going to try. And because of that, she doesn't get married. And her dad's like, bro, what am I going to do? I need to get rid of these daughters.
Get rid of my daughters.
Yeah. Like, I think there was this thing of like, if you kept a daughter too long, people would start getting a little suspicious about you as a father. So the king, as a political thing, the king was like, I need to get her married. So the king sends a guy to the Oracle of Delphi, or one of the oracles, and it's just like, bro, what do I do with my daughter? And basically, the Oracle of Delphi is supposed to be Apollo, but here's the thing: esoteric hijack. The demiurgic principle, Venus, goes to Apollo and goes, "Hey, remember that one time that you screwed me over? I'm going to cash in that check." Moves Apollo aside, and Venus speaks through the Oracle of Delphi and basically trolls them and says, "Okay, here's what you got to do. You need to throw Psyche off a cliff. She needs to die, and she's going to get married. Send her in a marriage procession to the cliff and promise she'll get married, bro." And her father's like, "Oh, that's the message that comes back." So there's this interesting thing where they put her in a wedding dress and they have a marriage procession, but the marriage celebration, everyone's weeping and in tears, and the marriage celebration is more like a funeral procession. So there's this thing with marriage and death is combined in this symbol of this procession that goes to the cliff, and they're like, okay, here we go. And they throw she goes off the cliff. Everyone thinks she's dead and turns away and walks off. The east wind, which is a character in Greek mythology called Zephyr, picks her up and takes her to a magic land. So she appears, she just like wakes up, and there's like this giant like palace in front of her, and she's like, whoa, what's going on here? And she walks into the palace, and there are like invisible servants, so there's just shit floating like a broom, and she's like, okay, what's going on? And the servants tend to her and basically tell her, oh yeah, you're going to get married, your husband's coming soon. Wait, that's right. Sorry, you got me on the spot here, but basically that was the Oracle of Delphi said she needs to get married to a monster. That's what's going to happen. And so send her to this cliff and she'll get married to the monster. And that's what happens. And so she jumps off, East Wind gets sent. And so she's in this palace and she's like, your husband is going to come soon. That's what the servants tell her. And she's like, oh boy. Okay, well, I guess this is what's up. I guess this is my life now. So she... Oh my God, sorry, I fucked up here. I fucked up with the chronology.
I always do this, by the way, when I'm telling myths. I always like, yeah.
So prior to this, before Venus tries to get her killed, the first thing she does is she sends Eros, or like Cupid, to go to her when she's still alive. She sends Eros to go and like shoot your arrow at her and make her fall in love with someone really ugly. Some like a 2 out of 10 as punishment. This will freak everyone out. It'll be great. Venus is like, this is going to be amazing. So Eros goes while she's still alive, Psyche's still alive, and like he's gonna do it. But as soon as he sees her, he kind of gets a little enchanted. As he's looking at her, he like leans in to get a better look at like this gorgeous woman asleep in the bed, and he stabs himself with his own arrow by accident and falls in love with her because that's what his arrow does. So Eros has fallen in love with her. So in that bit where Venus was like, yeah, send her to the cliff, Venus just thinks she's going to jump off and die. Eros sends the East Wind to pick her up and take her to this palace. So she's in the palace. She thinks she's going to marry a monster, or she doesn't know what's going on. Okay, what's going on? The monster thing isn't introduced yet. So you got me on the spot here. I'm mixing all of this shit up.
I fucking love it.
She's like, what am I doing here? My husband? Okay, cool. So I'm going to get married. What happens is the servants lead her into this dark chamber, the marriage chamber. It's all dark. She has no idea what's happening. She's naked in this marriage chamber, and her husband comes in, but it's completely dark. So, and she starts feeling around. She's like, is this what my husband is? Doesn't feel like a monster, and they start doing it. And it's interesting when you read this tale as well. It's like the actual prose that's used is they spent the night doing many jousts of love, and I just remember reading jousts of love and lolling. I was like, that's hilarious. Love it, absolute bang. And like, so she's like, okay. And in the morning, of course, her husband's gone. When it's light and she can see her husband's gone, she has no idea what he looks like, and she just lives like that. She lives, during the day being tended to by all of these invisible servants, and then at night she is in a dark room, and her husband, who she has never seen, comes in and they bang, and it's pretty good actually. But what happens is she starts getting depressed, and she's like, I want my family to know that I'm okay. Can I go back to my family? She asks the servants, and the servants relate to the husband. The husband's like, okay. Yep, the East Wind will pick you up. Go back to your family and spend time with them. And when you wanna come back to the cliff, and the East Wind will pick you up again. So she leaves. She leaves with the East Wind. She goes back to the kingdom, and everyone's like, oh my God, Psyche's alive. And she starts telling this tale. And it's like, yes, oh my God. And there's this magic palace, and there are these invisible servants. And all of her family's there. Her sisters are also there. And her sisters are mid. And so they're just like, what? You're ultra jealous of their gorgeous sister. And they thought she died. So they're like, at first they're like, oh, she's alive. But then they're like, she's got invisible servants, giant palace. So they're getting ultra salty, and they're like, can we come see this palace? So they come, the East Wind takes them as a throuple, and they all go, they check out the palace, and the sisters just keep getting madder at the sight of this giant palace. They're getting mad. And so they start whispering to her, maybe you haven't seen your husband. Maybe he is a monster. Maybe he's just fattening you up with all this food just so he can like devour you one day. And they're starting to freak her out. And so they put this into her mind, which is interesting because it's like the two sisters, it's like the mind itself putting doubt. It's the rational mind giving you doubts. And it's interesting when the sisters go, the East Wind like doesn't pick them up, so they just like fall into an abyss and die instantly. That's what you get, girls. But Psyche's then left, and she's like, oh God, maybe my husband is a monster. So what she does is, the next night, her husband comes, they bang, and then while her husband's asleep, she goes and lights a lamp. And when she turns around, then it's interesting. She's in a state of love that's in darkness. She's not conscious of it. but she illuminates with a lamp. She becomes conscious of love. She becomes conscious of Eros. And as she does this, she becomes enchanted by this beautiful young man. And she does the same thing. She like leans over, and as she leans, like oil or like from the lamp falls and hits Eros and burns him. And because she's there, she thought at first he was a monster. She had a knife with her as well, but she's so enchanted she forgets she's holding the knife. So Eros wakes up and just sees her there with a knife and is like, oh. And he's heartbroken because she thinks, after all this, you're just going to stab me. So he runs away and cries like a sissy boy. Runs away back to Mummy Venus. And then we get the journey, the true journey, because what Psyche has to do then to reclaim Eros. So Psyche, the human soul, must reclaim love, Eros. She must go through these labors, kind of like the labors of Hercules. But I like her labors better, because the labors of Hercules, they're all good, but when you read the labors, it's kind of like, he solves everything just by like lifting weights and like punching things out.
His way through. Okay.
And he's smart at once.
Way out of them, or
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay. And everyone's like, oh, Aegean stables, yeah, but it's like one, bro. That's like one time. All the other times, it's just like, oh, there's a dragon guarding this garden of apples. You can just one shot it with a fucking arrow. Yeah, whatever. Cool, Hercules. But Psyche, so she has to go through these trials then. So Venus puts up these like, oh, you want Eros back? Okay. Here are some trials. And so she gives them these 4 trials in the first one. Now, the first one is she gives Psyche these piles of seeds. And so this is where I become a little conspiratorial, and I say there was an ancient initiatic cult of Psyche and Eros, and they had their own mystery system. Yeah. And it's completely dissolved and no longer exists, but what the doctrine survives in this myth. So you have these piles of seeds, and Venus basically says you need to order all of the different seeds. So instead of like this huge pile of just all the mixed seeds together, I want you to put, all the sunflower seeds here, all of these seeds here, all of the into different. And it's like a huge pile, and it's like she goes, you have until sunrise, and then Venus leaves, and Psyche's like, oh God, what do I do? So what happens is while Psyche's thinking of what to do, is ants come out of the ground. And ants, this chthonic thing that comes out of the ground, intellectually organizes this mixture into different categories. So it's just, I've kind of said it there, but I'm like, there's some kind of training of the mind using chthonic energies, or this categorization using ants instinctual. The Muladhara chakra in the East, the chakras, when you see them, proper chakras, they'll have animals in them, and the Muladhara chakra has ants in it. It's the ant is the Muladhara chakra.
What color chakra is that?
The red one.
Oh, okay, so root instinct, like proper,
root instincts, ant. And so it's interesting. The ants, the instinct is the thing that's able to categorize, that's able to do this trial. And so it all gets done, and Psyche's like, cool. And then Venus comes in the morning, like, hey, what? And she's like, okay. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to the sun sheep of Helios, and I want you to get some of their wool so I can make a fleece. And also, this is like a weird like connection with mythology, because the fleece that Venus then makes out of this is literally the golden fleece that Jason and the Argonauts get.
Oh shit! Yeah.
But so this is how
make the connection. Cool.
Nonetheless. So Psyche then has to go and so she's going towards these sun sheep of Helios. Now, the thing that you need to know about the sun sheep of Helios is they actually eat the flesh of man. So if you approach them, they'll just eat you alive. But as she's approaching them, she like falls down into a river, and a spirit comes, like a nereid, or like a river spirit comes and whispers in her ear and is like, "Hey, if you want to get the wool from the sun sheep, you don't have to like go up to them and peel it off them. What you do is you just wait for them in their meadows. They move from one meadow to another, but between the meadows are these thorny bushes. So as they move from one meadow to the next, they'll rub up against the thorny bushes, and parts of their wool will get caught on the thorny bushes. So you can just collect the wool later. You don't need to approach the sheep. And it's interesting. It's like when you look at that, it's like before it was instinctual. what is the thing that reconciles or solves this trial? It's the water spirit, water emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of emotion, some kind of intuitional capacity that needs to be developed that will allow you, because what's a sheep? When people say wolves and sheep are harmless, but this is different.
These are flesh-eating sheep.
Flesh that will kill you immediately. So it's something that appears harmless but will actually kill you. The only way you'd ever be able to know is through the water spirit, i.e. intuition, your emotion, your emotional reaction. So there's some kind of this is the training from
and
the
patience in there as well. The idea of waiting for them to
exactly. So Psyche does this, and she just waits for the sheep to move to another meadow, and then goes to the thorny bushes, collects the fleece, and then goes to Venus, and Venus is just sipping a tea and is like, "Oh, Psyche, you're here, Psyche," and it's like, "Oh, you have the golden fleece, you have the wool, thank you, Psyche." So she's like, okay. Here's the next thing I want you to do, Psyche. Here's a chalice. I want you to literally go to the river Styx in the abyss and fill this cup with water from the river Styx. And Psyche's like, okay. So she gets the cup and she goes, and it's like described as she goes to the edge of this cliff and she looks into the abyss, and she looks down and she can see into the abyss, and she can see the river of Styx, but it's so far away, and there's it's impassable terrain, and there's like two dragons that are in the kind of like in an RPG how you see like an enemy in the distance, but it doesn't even have like a level, that's just a skull, and you're like, man, I'm not even close to getting past these guys. So she's looking at this, and she's like, oh God, what am I gonna do? And then she hears a cry, an eagle cry. And an eagle, a transcendental principle from above, descends, picks up the cup, flies down. And the eagle actually goes and takes out the dragons as well. So the eagle doesn't even need to do that. But Eagle Bro just takes out the dragons, flies straight down, gets the river of Styx water, flies back up, drops it in Psyche's hand. And it's like, okay. So here it's interesting because there's another, you could say it's trust in the higher transcendental forces. There's something that you can't overcome, but there are higher transcendental principles that have a nature of rebellion. Using mystical Christianity, they say Christ, if you read the Pistis Sophia, the Gnostic text, it says Christ is this revolutionary force that when he came down through the spheres spun one way, but he came down so forcefully they now spin the other way. So and they say this is why astrologers are incorrect half of the time, because of the Christ is so revolutionary, he can change the spinning of the spheres themselves. So sometimes astrology at one point was ultimately correct, but because of the transcendental forces
spinning back
being so rebellious, it spins it the other way, and then the astrologers are completely wrong. But it's this eagle, this transcendental force that comes down, descends, the opposite of the Kundalini that goes up. It's this this force that descends. So I can go enthusiastic and knock my headphone out. Descends, comes down, and absolutely smashes everything, clears the way, and completes the work, almost as like an act of grace, or as an act of grace. Sorry. And so she gets the Styx water, and Venus is like, okay, enough's enough. Here, gives her this box and says, I want you to go down into the underworld. I want you to go down to Hades, and I want you to ask his wife, Persephone, to fill this box with a little bit of beauty. And if you can complete this task, you can have Eros back. So, she then, and this, I'll abridge this one, but it's like her whole travel down there, she needs to, pass the Carrion on the river of Styx and past Cerberus. And she does that by going to this tower and getting, which is interesting. It's a tower filled with people, and she asks them, and they give her coins and specific cakes and specific knowledge. So it's interesting. It's almost like the tower represents tradition itself that she's drawing from, because a tower is not something in nature. It's something artificial.
Yeah, made by man to preserve.
So it's made by man.
It's built up over time, a collection of
So it's historical. It's like, even though you're able to get things from the transcendent and the chthonic region, you still go back to tradition and extract from there these certain things, this gold and these cakes. And with that, she's able to pay the tithe to the carrion, so he's able to boat her across into the underworld. And then with the cakes, she throws them before Cerberus, so he eats them, and he's too busy eating them, and she can walk past. And she goes all the way down to Hades, and like, hey, sup, Persephone, and Persephone's like, box, beauty, yeah, sure, no problem. She doesn't mind at all. She it's interesting. She holds the box and then just gives it back. It's described, she kind of gives it back to Psyche. And when Psyche gets it back, it's like she can feel it being heavier. So, and it's very mysterious because it's like she doesn't open the box. It just something absorbs into it and she can feel that it's heavy.
And she's carrying this ethereal thing in a box.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so, that's beautiful. I love that.
Carrying beauty. And so she travels back up out of the underworld. And as she's on her way back to the Temple of Venus, back to go into Venus, she then has this thought. She's like, oh, I'm going to see Eros again. I've made it. But all of these trials, they've really stressed me out. Maybe I've got some crow's feet. Maybe I'm not that beautiful as I once was. Maybe if I just look into this box and I get just a little bit of the beauty. And what's the problem with this box? Yeah, it's beauty, but it's also beauty from who's Persephone, a goddess of death, technically, goddess of the underworld. So she opens the box and death comes out. And it basically says, well, she falls, Thanatos, the god of death, makes her fall into a sleep. So she doesn't die. Thanatos makes her fall into a sleep.
Yeah.
And, but it's she died. But it's unlike other Greek myths where it's like, it's a tragedy, oh well. And wow. And unlike other Greek myths, in this myth, Eros finally gets his sissy boy love life together, breaks his chains, because all this time, like, apparently Venus had him trapped away. He breaks chains, gets out, flies to Psyche, and Eros is like looking at her dead body, or looking at her body asleep, and like he sees Thanatos there, and he's like, no. And he's like, you know what? Screw this. This isn't how it ends. And he just does a Giga Chad move, lifts her up, and pulls her into Mount Olympus, so she can take
That's
Ambrosia.
the famous painting of
Where it's like where she's got butterfly wings.
Yeah.
And he pulls her into Mount Olympus and gives her some ambrosia, so she becomes divine. And this is interesting because it does two things. One, she is now, it's interesting because it's death and resurrection. So the last task, you will never succeed. You will die, but in your death will be your triumph. If love will come and save you, if you've done it correctly, you will get crowned with immortality. So she becomes resurrected. But now because she's a divine being, she's no longer mortal. And mortals are, she's no longer in danger of stealing Venus's followers. So Venus is like, well, now that you're immortal, I don't care. Hugs, sisters.
That's fucking brilliant.
So the demiurgic principle is no longer her enemy. She's now immortal, and all of the invisible servants are now visible, and they're the gods. And the end scene is this grand feast where then all of the gods are her servants. And you just think like, holy crap. And it's like Hephaestus is like the barbecue guy, like roasting meats for her. And then like Dionysus is her cupbearer. And I'm like, damn, this is like, imagine the god of wine being your cupbearer. And like Hephaestus, the god of the smithery, he's the guy like roasting meat for you and stuff. And it's like this epic kind of thing.
Which account are you? Because Richard, when I asked you to tell us the story of Psyche and Eros, I thought you were going to be like, yeah, so Venus tricked Psyche into doing a couple of labors, and then she opened a box with beauty. And your knowledge is, I want someone to animate that. Well, that last few like 10 minutes of audio, I want someone to actually go and animate that as a fucking cartoon, because that's like, why? How do you retain this fucking knowledge? Like
autism.
Beautiful. And what's the general, like the overarching moral there is that we are to, it can't just be as simple as like, with the same moral that's echoed in Pandora. It's the idea that like beauty gets her in the end, her vanity gets her in the end, the same thing that gets Narcissus.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, there is an interesting moral there, but it's also like there's a sense of inferiority as well in there. I guess it's like vanity, but it's similar to all things in Greek myth.
Yeah.
Kind of like, like it's not the same, but like with Orpheus doubting Eurydice is behind him. There's this doubt that creeps in. There's always something there, even right at the end. We're right at the finish line, and then doubt creeps in. And then that's our ultimate fall.
It
But
does.
it's like,
Whenever I hear Greek myth like retold to me like this, with this level of detail and this level of symbolism and meaning and under, I just think the Greeks must have been so much more intelligent than we are today. I mean, really, for people to, or maybe not. Maybe there was a Shakespearean thing in the myth where there's a level for the lay people and there's a level for the initiated.
oh,
But
definitely.
you're right. Okay, that makes more sense. Makes more sense. Like, wow, okay. No, and actually, to kind of bring it full circle, this is precisely why you need to understand comparative mythology and comparative religion. And it's because like there is so much buried in these things. It's kind of unreal when you unpack it.
100%. I would say like that's a thing that happens the more you do practice and study. Things will happen where you'll have a spontaneous, something happens in practice. And then later on, it could be a year later, it could be a week later, you'll be reading something, and then the author will say exactly the thing that happened to you in your practice, and it confirms it. But then there are other things where you'll be reading something first, and then later on, you'll have kind of an experience that confirms it. And there's this reciprocal relationship between
retro causal, perhaps,
tradition and revelation. And it's like they build on each other. And it's like sometimes you'll read a fairy tale and just you'll be like, there's something alchemical in here. 100%. 100%. And it's like, and other times it's like you have the experience first, and then like you see it later, or then you'll read it first, and then it will kind of some revelation will kind of connect it in you in a different way. It's just, that's kind of what happens. I attribute maybe my memory in that way to this kind of constant contemplation. This is going to be a bit of a tangent to go on, but if you want me,
all I'll say is that this is why you're so good at what you do. Like in the Greek sense, they would say memory is the mother of the muses, right? Like it's like if you don't have this kind of insanely good memory, then how can you? But yeah, sorry, go ahead. That's like
there's this thing. So Gurdjieff, my take on Gnosticism, when I say someone's a Gnostic or I'm a Gnostic, what I mean is the soteriological function, or what produces salvation, what produces what's real, is knowledge.
Okay.
So hence why Christianity isn't gnosis, it's pistis, it's faith, it's belief. Salvation is assured via your belief or faith in Christ. That's what made the Gnostics Gnostic. They didn't believe that like, it's like the Gnostics didn't, it's not that they didn't believe in Christ or whatever, or, blah, blah, but it's like what the function of salvation was knowledge. Now, Gurdjieff, I didn't know this until I read Beelzebub's Tale, Saul's grandson. He has all these little drops in Beelzebub, all these blinds, all of these tangents. But right at the end of Beelzebub, he says this thing about kind of knowledge and understanding. He calls it knowledge and understanding because it's like, when we talk about knowledge, it's like, oh yeah, knowledge is great. But what's the difference between data and knowledge and wisdom? And people always talk about this shit, but it's like, phenomenologically, what's the change in your body? And Gurdjieff at the end of the Beelzebubs, he says this really interestingly. He says, think of the human machine with the different cylinders. You have your intellectual cylinder of thought, your emotional cylinder for your emotions, your motor with your movements. But he says, normal people, when they gain knowledge, it's just data that just goes only into the intellectual cylinder. And then sometimes they'll get another idea and it will only go into the intellectual cylinder. And they'll hold these 2 points and they'll either connect together and it'll be a dialectic, or maybe they'll just maintain two things at the same time, cognitive dissonance. But it's just that cylinder. And he says, basically, what needs to happen is when the body is organized and balanced, an impression is able to strike all of the cylinders at the same time. But also there's this principle, which he calls self-remembering. But basically, in this schema, it's when the higher cylinders are active, or when the conscious awareness is active. Because there's this thing of, you can be watching a movie just passively, like your attention is going into it. Or you can kind of be watching it in a state where, as the impression of the movie is coming in, you're also aware of your reaction to it.
Oh, definitely. So you can actively watch something.
Conscious thing watching your reaction to an impression. So basically, he says, when this happens, when your body is organized and an impression strikes all of the cylinders, and there's this principle that's watching what happens when the impression actually strikes the body and the reactions it causes through the cylinders, that knowledge is gained. from the awareness sees that, that's also a second type of knowledge. So it's like you have knowledge here, knowledge there. This double knowledge creates a friction within you, and it actually produces something. It actually changes being. And, you know, that's an odd thing to say. It's like, how do you prove that? But it's like, when he said that, I was like, that clarified
That's a profound
bunch of
thing to say, actually. Yeah, it has for me just now. I'm like thinking about that. It's kind of
because
I didn't even think about the idea of bodily knowing something, let alone like that's wild. Like, okay,
because it's like he has this distinction of the difference between knowing and being, and there's always this thing of like, you know, knowing something and knowing something. It's like, you know, you can. What's a good example? Like, you can own a bike. And you can know how to ride a bike. Someone can steal your bike, but they can't steal your knowledge. It's a part of you, like a skill that's being built into you. So here's this concept of being, but knowing is something different from being, but they're connected. Yeah. So it's like you can know something, but like if you read something ultra profound, you won't get the full profundity of it. You will only get the profundity up to the level of being you are. So if someone is a master and they write a poem like this, but your being is down here, you can still get stuff out of it, but only that much. Yeah. But being, how do you increase being? You increase being by gaining knowledge. And by gaining knowledge, it has this effect, which then kind of mutes your being. And it's like this catch-22. How do you kind of, he always said that. I'm like, how do you fucking do it? How do you do it, Gurdjieff? But when he said that, I was like, oh, this is Neoplatonic contemplation. Yes. Yeah. This is why it's like you meditate, you get into a certain point, you know, you read something, you meditate, but there's also a kind of like being in a state of meditation, not emptying your mind per se, but allowing the thought to come in of what you've just read and just allowing it to kind of tangentially move within your mind. Over you. Yeah. And it just letting it ponder, letting you contemplate. Something happens, and it's just over years of just accidentally doing that, I think. Just constantly reading, having time to read, and continuously practicing, having a very disciplined, constant practice. Things have just come into my mind and have just digested. And because they digested, it's found a place in my being. And so when someone asks me, hey, what's this thing? I'm able to go, hey, I'm able to, in my mind, if you think of your mind as a room, there's a door at the back of the room, your subconscious realm, and I can call to that door and the memory will come out. That just seems to happen. It's like magnetic in a sense. That's how I describe it phenomenologically.
No, it's really interesting because I was watching one of your videos where you were talking about meditation, and you had one of the best descriptions of meditation there, where you were talking about how you sit, how you command stillness, how in Western thought we see relaxation and concentration as two ends of the same spectrum, but actually they're not. You were basically just saying the basic principle, and you described how the mind wanders from how it deviates from it, and how your job is not to just stop it wandering, it's to bring it back, continuously bring it back until that becomes an autonomic response or whatever, and you just reflexively can bring your mind back to. No one ever described meditation to me like that, but I had to figure that on my own. It took about 4 years.
Exactly.
I wish I'd seen that video before, and someone would just go, "Oh no, you're doing it right," even though you're sitting here and nothing's happening. Yes. You're actually doing it right. Like that's.
And the problem is, there's a bunch of retards who will like go to a meditation place and they'll be like, count the breath to 10. And then at the end they'll be like, who got to 10? And you're honest. We're on it. I'm honest. So I'll be like, man, I didn't even get to 5. And there'll be all these people like, yeah, I got to 10. I got to 10. I'm like, am I doing it wrong? And it's like, no, they're just retarded. They don't even have the consciousness available to comprehend like there are the thoughts within them, the subconscious thoughts.
This stuff is so important because meditation is one of like 3 or 4 practices that I would say are central no matter what your spiritual practice is or what, you know, even with your, it kind of blows my mind that people don't get it. Fasting is another one. Like we have in this group chat we're doing very, very basic kind of introductions to things like sigilization and like group ritual and
your
stuff.
Group chats sound based, bro.
It's fucking based. I'm not going to lie. It's cool. But you know what's funny? The amount of people who joined who'd never fasted for a solitary day before. Who had never, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm going, you've not withheld food from yourself and had the mental mastery to kind of command you, but how on earth are you, there are some real basic foundational things, meditation being chief among them, I would say. It's just so important because if you can't command your own mind, then how can you? But that's interesting. I have to ask, what were the words that Robert Zephyr said that gave away that he was in this milieu of like not fourth way, but in, I forget the guy's name.
The Semi-aliens.
How do you know Robert Zephyr is a Semi-alien?
It was just over time, and it's hard because it's like, which videos, bro? I watched all of them back in the day.
He's dropping like constant little hints of like,
because I noticed he would say stuff about the sexual energy at some points. I'm like, oh, he knows his stuff, yeah. And it was the stuff he was saying about magic, and then like, it's when he started introducing like Crumhella, Mantak Chia, Samael, and he'd have that, and I was like,
sticking it on the end there, just like
sticking it in the end on the end. And the other thing was Crumhella, because I'm like, I'm going to be honest, I only know about Crumhella because of Samael. It's like the only people who know about Crumhella are Samaelians, or if you're really into the OTO, at one point in time, a part of the required reading of the OTO's curriculum was Crumhella's book, Logos Mantra Magic or something like that.
Interesting. Okay.
And so
have you ever joined an order of any kind? You don't have to tell me if you're bound by a blood of secrecy oath or something. I don't want to. It's like
in my Rosicrucian lineages video, I mentioned that I'm a part of a little order, but it's a secret.
Amazing. I damn, so good. Okay, do you mind taking some questions from the chat? I'm sure people will have a number of like interesting.
Yeah, sure. And I was also going to say, like, do you also want to like go through my astrology at some point? But we'll go through questions now because I know
I would love to go through your astrology. Well, firstly, let's just get this. Where do you stand on astrology? Because when you were talking about Blavatsky, you meticulously described a sun and a moon or whatever it was. How much of a fascination do you have with this? How much have you looked into it? How much do you know about it?
So I'm like a half kind of, I shudder to say half astrologist because I have not formally studied astrology at all. Like, I kind of know about sextuts and conjuncts and squares.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, tangentially, through studying alchemy, through studying Kabbalah, through studying certain authors, I've learned all of the different signs. I've learned that the signs are masculine and feminine. I've learned the elements. I've learned the planets. I've learned kind of the horoscope. I've learned rising.
You've read so much, there's no way you couldn't have. Like, it's kind of, that's,
And so I have a kind of, I have a very basic style of reading a horoscope. So I'm not like an actual trained astrologer, but like to a degree, if you show me a horoscope, I can go, okay, it looks all good. You know, there's a triangle there, a grand triangle. Great.
Yeah, let's get you to read your own horoscope.
But there's
do you want to put in the back
your Jupiter is in conjunct with your sun, and so something's wrong there. Yes. So I won't be able to tell you what's wrong. Got it. I'll have to say, go to see an astrologer. But I can say, there's something there between the Jupiter and the sun.
Oh, that's fascinating.
That's kind of the level.
No, I would say you're at the level that most of my students, quote unquote, are at the moment, where they're just trying to work out, like they're way past basically like signs and placements, and they're looking at aspects, they're looking at deacons, they're looking at like dignitaries, what's fallen versus what's exalted. That's fascinating. I love how you just picked up secondhand. That's wild. Like that's like
just pure secondhand.
Okay. Guys, if you have questions for Richard, stick a Q in front of them. And I will endeavor to get through. Obviously, of course, super chats will be prioritized. Crowley wrote a book on astrology, but he wrote it under a pen name. And I believe many people, when for some reason they're more than happy to write their occult treaties under their normal names, but when it comes to astrology, even in Victorian times, you had a lot of occultists writing under pseudonyms when they write their astrological books. Crowley wrote under a woman's name. I cannot remember; it escapes me for the life of me. But I wouldn't. I'm not surprised, for example, if you've read all of Blavatsky and stuff, that you've picked all that up and that you've kind of.
I haven't read all of Blavatsky. I'm not going to lie.
Okay. Interesting.
But like I've read. I read Dion Fortune, I read Franz Hartmann, I read some Eliphas Levi. It's like through reading the Western tradition, hey, American Esoteric,
right? Yeah, what the fuck? It's so dope.
Actually, did he message me before?
He's not wrong, by the way, either. Richard's recall and enthusiasm is actually ridiculous. Like, it is insane. Like, Richard's got sort of like a walking human library. What's the funny about Richard?
He just messaged me. Sorry, Colin just messaged me. He just said esoteric comedy is now a genre. Congratulations. He says, how do you retain this fucking knowledge, bro? Richard, autism, bro. I absolutely lost it.
No, but that's so real. Oh man, it's like, you know what it is about you, dude? You make me a little bit more reassured about the Neuralink stuff that's coming down the pipe. Okay. Because whilst I don't want to get a chip in my head, the idea that I could take your head and put it in my head, the idea that I could just be like, no, I don't have to do all the reading that he's done, but I can just take the fucking chip and put it in. Like, there's something about that would be very nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Maybe that you might get ontologically raped by my memories or something. I don't know.
Oh Lord, yeah.
I don't know if that. I don't
want to be like in love with your missus.
There might be side effects.
No. Weird stuff.
They got to work out those kinks, dog.
Where do you stand on tech and the encroaching? Like, where are you?
Look, I am a Giorgiani fan in some degrees.
Okay, brilliant. You read Prometheus and Atlas, right?
But I'm very sussy bucker from transhumanism. My problem is I love Gurdjieff. I'm a fan of Gurdjieff, and Gurdjieff wanted humans to be less machines.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think becoming mechanical is. I think becoming more mechanical is actually problematic. You know what? Like, archetypally, when you play video games, when you play Shadowrun, and there's magic and science, they always have that thing. It's like when you put a tech on you, your psychic power goes down.
Yes.
So if you want to play the game, you can either go full Psyche and just be a pure human, or you can mix and match, put some augmentations on, or you can just go full melee and just get like friggin' claws on your hands and go like put a whole bunch of metal on. It's like I feel like
looking at it. That's such a good
I feel like that's a parallel to real life. Like, if you go full transhuman route, you will lose something. And all those people being like, oh, transhumanism and spirituality can work. I'm very sus. Oh,
I feel you. Hello, everyone. Okay, I'm just pulling your chat window up here. Give me a second. I've got to scroll through this. So people are saying drop the link. There's no way I'm letting you call in. Are you crazy? I don't know who you are. That could be what, like, I'm supposed to just feel like, drop the link, bro. Drop the link. I'm like, no, dude. What the fuck? That's wild. Okay. Question. Is it wise to keep your birthday occulted and hidden? I would say yes, but not maybe for the reasons you think. Like, not that it's like, people can know your birthday so they can curse you easier. Although every single witch that I've ever known has used people's astrology and birthdays and names when they make a candle, like an apotropaic candle of someone to destroy like a voodoo doll. It's always names and star signs and resonant things about that person. But no, I would keep it secret and I would keep it safe for people you trust in general, right? Like, I don't understand I was talking to a girl the other week and she was like, oh, it's my birthday week. And I was just like, what? And she was like, yeah, it's my birthday week. And I was like, all of this needs to fucking stop. Like, all of this like self-aggrandizing, self-indulging. So that's what I would say. What do you reckon, Richard?
I would say, first of all, Daniel Harris, very nice profile picture.
I didn't see that. Fuck yeah.
That's good old Gurdjieff there. We got a Gurgy Burgy fan in the chat.
Nice.
But the thing about there was some guy said something once. It's like, what's the Black Lodge's favorite day? And the answer was your birthday, because that's how they get you. But I would say something like, definitely in the beginning, keep it occulted, obviously. But I would say there's a point where you wouldn't need to worry, because if you are doing the spiritual work, there would be a point where how should I put this? You would transcend the planetary influences, or at the very least, you would start unhooking the planetary influences off of you. And when you kind of get to that level, a TikTok witch's curse ain't going to do much against you, bro.
No, that's so real.
It's not going to influence you.
Real. Yeah. There are people with different levels of like magicka, if you will, right? And if you're like low-level magicka person, then I imagine you could be pretty fucking exactly. Birthday week, right? Massive fucking red flag. I couldn't really believe it. Question: if mechanizing the body causes a reduction in psychic potential, this is such a fucking good question. If mechanizing the body causes a reduction in psychic potential, what does he think of vegetarianism and meat eating? What do you think of it in general? The carnivore, vegan, spiritual side of diet, right?
So this is interesting. And the person because I had opinions on this and they changed over time. And then I think I was reading Franz Baden and he answered this really well. So according to Franz Baden, the difference between this is, and this is a little bit of me mixed in as well, is think of the archetype of the mystic kind of sage to the east or to the west. So for the east, it's the person who's got a turban, he's just got underwear on, and he lives in the mountains, away from people. Whereas in the West, the alchemist, the court astrologer, that guy was in society. And here's the thing. When
So fucking
the thing about vegetarianism is it lowers your vril, but it increases your sensitivity to energy. So the mystic who lowers his vril, but he doesn't need it. He doesn't need to participate in politics. So he can cultivate as much as he needs. And then once he gets into energy manipulation, he can feel the energies easier. So he can manipulate them really easily and he can get stuff done. He can open up more channels and cultivate really well. If you're in life, you don't necessarily want to be low energy. So you kind of eat the meat, but then you have more vril, more power. But the problem is you're not as sensitive. So it's harder to kind of manipulate. But there's some surplus where you should be able to, in a certain way, if you do practices, if you are esoteric, the court astrologer is in the court, but he also has his little wizard tower where he does his alchemy away from society. There are times where you do a retreat for a week, and that's where you're able to put your senses in your body and then work with those energies, even though you're not as sensitive as an Eastern mystic. So I would say with meat eating or vegetarianism, it's almost an East or West dichotomy, but really it's that principle. It's if you're too much sex, if you're a sex freak, go vegetarian and then just like get more sensitive and get into energy manipulation. If you're a simp, if you're a little bit pale,
that's such a good way of putting it.
Start eating meat, baby. Start eating meat. Start lifting weights. Get your vril pumping, and then do some way of the fakir.
No, that's interesting. I've also noticed a thing about like hair, right? Like people who grow their hair out long seem to be more empathetic and more sensitive, and people who like but it doesn't count if you're bald. I mean, I'm talking about by choice. I'm talking about like it's kind of like a thing where people grow their hair out, and there's even in culture there's that association between the hippie kind of. If you think of hair, esoterically speaking, as an antenna, as a radar of kind of like there's something there. Okay, fascinating. I'm going to give you.
For men, I would say it would be the beard. For women, it would be the hair.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to the beard as well. And I mean, there's archaic that goes way back into like the 100%.
Definitely.
Question: are there valid reasons to be suspicious of modern esoterica as opposed to classical esoterica? More with the fucking banger questions. Okay, man.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. I'd say cool. Here's the problem. There's a sussy buck of suspicion about classical esoterica as well. And the suspicion with that is on the translators and their lies. People who translate.
Yes.
What the hell are they translating? That word nous. Why are you translating it just as mind? It's like there are some things. And then it's like, what do you choose to leave in the original? And if you leave too many words in the original, it just kind of becomes clunky and you constantly need a side dictionary as you read. Or do you go for some kind of meaning, or do you make it easier? The problem with classical esoterica is translations. There's a barrier to that. Modern esoterica, the problem is, and this is why I promote Dion Fortune, Eliphas Levi, Franz Hartmann, because they're from an era where it was quite rare. There's a period where after like kind of the old guard die off, there's this occult renaissance in the West, and then every single guy and their dog has some published magical journey about doing this and that, and it's just like it's too much. There's too much. Yeah. And so with modern esoterica as well, there may be political stuff like with modern paganism.
I was just thinking that. The exact thing in my head that came to my head was like CIA creating some kind of like, you know what I mean? Order of the Nine Angles, like kind of this kind of thing that just popped.
With modern paganism, there's like a 4-way thing it can go. It can go like, it's a dice roll between, is this guy a crypto Satanist who became a pagan because he hates Christianity? Or is this guy a crypto Christian who's like, Boulder is just the Christ, right? Or is it like, is this guy just gonna lead you into right-wing politics, or is this a weird wicked left-wing commune?
Right.
It's a complete dice roll.
Yeah,
and so
definitely
both of
I
those
actually
things
hate
have
the
problems.
Politicization of the occult as well. You made a fantastic video, which I suggest everybody go and watch Richard's video, called The Political Compass of Various Occult Groups. I think it was 2 parts to it, actually. Fucking banger video.
It's 3. Well, it's of a meme, but there's a tragedy behind that where the 4th parts may not be coming out anytime soon.
Oh, okay, right. But no, but you just the way there really is a spectrum, right? And I guess as everything becomes more fractured and polarized and balkanized and whatever, then of course the occult's going to reflect that as well. But do you see that as something that's happened more recently, or it getting worse, or do you think that's just something I'm projecting onto it?
Yeah, so I should point out, back in the day, so there's a kind of a left-wing, right-wing dichotomy, but around the 1920s, when the left wing, the entirety of the left wing were what? Communists. And as we mentioned before, what's the problem with communism for occultists? The problem is dialectical materialism. Because of that, there was a period where every single occultist was right-wing.
I'm so glad that you said this, and it doesn't have to be me saying, because people accuse me of trying to shove politics into it, and I'm really not political, especially these days. I used to be, I couldn't care less now. I've
So it's
transcended politics, but like, fuck, man, that's so real. That's just a matter of fact, right? That is
just
factually correct statement.
Because it's like,
because it's secrecy, it's hierarchy, it's
hierarchy,
gatekeeping and initiation. Like, what about
that sounds left-wing? It's spirit, not matter. It's spirit over matter.
Precisely.
So you, via definition, you can't be a dialectical materialist and be an occultist.
Yeah, that's
and so it's only, even with Wicca, there's this whole thing about like one of the main teachers of Gerald Gardner was like a female who was a Whig, part of like a conservative party.
Yes, conservative.
And then it's like, and apparently I was talking to a guy who was a theosophist actually, but he said up until like the late 70s, Wicca groups banned you from entering if you were gay, which is a complete opposite. Nowadays.
No, it's crazy how they've done a number on Gerald Gardner, who he was a very eccentric guy. He was a nudist, he was a loon, but he was really bigoted, like kind of like in a way where kind of like he was very had his, and like you say, everyone from the time was right. And Wicca has this huge thing about venerating women, so in that gets lumped in everything else with today's modern kind of identity politics and stuff. But everything's just become so slopified. One thing I wanted to ask you about is New Age slop. I, as someone who's very much into astrology, I do believe that we are living in the cusp, if you like, of a new age. I do believe that there is a transition between what I would call Piscean thought and Aquarian thought, away from dogma and spirituality and moralism towards we're all going to live in a fixed air, we're going to live in a cloud. But it's hard for me to explain that to people. Obviously, I'm talking more about like what Crowley termed the age of Horus. What you can look at this through many different lenses, but New Age has become associated with such fucking slop and drivel, and you are one of the best people for calling out New Age slop. Like, you have the best slop detector, New Age slop detector. Like, this is just fucking, this is slop. Firstly, what gave you the discernment, and how are you so good at working out between what is and what isn't slop?
Well, it's like, I think it's just because it was that burning fire when I was a kid. It's like, I know what I wanted, and that was the only thing available. Kundalini yoga, this Reiki, this and that. Yeah. And so in a sense, I kind of went through it. And I appreciate some of it for being a kindergarten that can lead someone onto something else.
Completely, couldn't agree more. Yeah, and I guess the second part of that question is, do you agree at all that we're moving into a new age? Do you see the new age paradigm as being useful in any sense?
So my problem with the new age thing is when they say we're going into the age of Aquarius, they say it like it's a good thing. Like we're just gonna dissolve borders and equality, and we're all gonna awaken. We're all awakening, man. We're all gonna go to the fifth dimension. Whenever I hear someone say
New Age,
it's like when they say something like, and this guy is a master, and they go, what? I think there are a lot more masters in this world than we give credit for. As soon as someone says some shit like that, I'm like
cringing. Just amazing.
You're done. The worst part is when you're giving a lecture, or like for me, I used to teach a little bit. I had some little groups.
Gotcha. Right.
And it's like whenever I had a student who like just came out with that shit, I was just like, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you.
No, it's brutal. I totally get. I totally get you, and I get your aversion to it. I just didn't understand how you were so good at spotting it, where the bullshit detector came from. It's kind of lovely, actually.
I think it's because I read good stuff then, and So I had
you need a foundation. Yeah, you absolutely need a foundation to build off of. And then you can slot things into it or see where things kind of fall away. Question: do you think this is a great question, actually, Wu-Kangs? Do you think initiation can be trained, or is it static? Oh, sorry, intuition can be trained, or is it static?
So it depends what we mean by intuition. So it's hard because there's New Age slop intuition.
Yes.
Where it's like,
yes.
Because the New Age slop intuition is like, use your intuition. And then it's like the worst people in the world using their intuition to justify their poor behavior.
Yeah, you're not under psychic attack, you're hungry. It's like, yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. It's so I would say the best description of intuition, and this is a hard call because this is a hard but rewarding read.
Okay.
The greatest book of philosophical esoteric occultism in the 20th century is The Meditation on the Tarot by Valentin Tomberg.
Ooh.
That, for those who don't know, really quick rundown. Valentin Tomberg, he actually wrote that book originally anonymously and had it published posthumously because he did not want a cult of the personality. So the idea is he wrote a book which has enough in it for you to awaken and then find him in the astral plane to get further teachings, kind of thing.
Wild.
But that book, each chapter, he uses the tarot as a kicking point to basically give a rundown of like the Western tradition. The first 4 chapters, Magician, Priestess, Empress, Emperor, constitute an entire esoteric work in and of themselves. That's better than like 100 other freaking books you've read. I guarantee you. But that book, chapter 18, has the best description on esoteric, occult, initiatic intuition.
Does it stay the same way all the way through? Like when you get to 18, is it like the sun or whatever the card, 18th number card?
It's a moon. It's a moon.
Moon. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's basically what I'll define it as. So Rudolf Steiner has the system, and Valentin Tomberg was a bit of a fan of Steiner. So Steiner has this thing. Initiation is taken in 3 steps: imagination, inspiration, and intuition. What does that mean? Imagination doesn't mean mechanical fantasy. Imagination is a receptive kind of thing. The best book I've read on that is A Candle Vision by A.E. or what is it, William? What I can't remember his actual name. He was an Irish hermeticist. Okay. But he wrote this book, Candle Vision, and that was required reading in Dion Fortune's occult school. But that book, that guy was a poet, and he wrote this book on cultivating clairvoyance. And he uses this example on like when you're sitting in meditation and you have a vision, how do you know it's an actual vision or just your fantasy, your memory or something? And he uses this example. He says something like, when you look at a framed picture on your wall of like, say, a tree, you can tell that a man has drawn that, even if it's one of those photorealistic pictures. Once you get close enough, you can see the hand of man. But if you look outside at a window or at a tree, you know that the hand of man did not make that. That's the hand of God or something else. So he says, it's basically like when you receive a spontaneous flash in meditation, it will have a flavor of memory, a flavor of fantasy, or a flavor of something else. And so this is what imagination, initiatic imagination is, esoteric imagination is. It's this cultivation of like you're sitting in meditation, you kind of receive certain things. You can cultivate this doing path working. Like if you've read Dion Fortune's book, A Mystical Kabbalah, chapter 13 is probably that's one of the best descriptions of path working I've ever read. Path working, for those who don't know, real quick, it's basically Jungian active imagination, but esoteric and Western initiatic. Inspiration is something different. Inspiration, so if you can think of imagination as the transcendental imprinting something on you. So you're a system, the human is a system, and data comes into the system. That data is represented visually. That's what imagination is. That's what vision is. Inspiration is not it coming down, but it's not just up. You going up. It's Peepe's touching.
The fusion.
Because what's inspiration? You think of the artist talking to his muse. So the artist is doing something, but then there's the transcendental connecting, the muse speaking to him, and there's this dialogue.
Yeah.
That's what inspiration is. It's a dialogue. Initiatic inspiration includes everything that is a dialogue between the human essence and a transcendental force.
And in that sense, it can absolutely be trained then. And in that sense, it can absolutely be honed into actually something like a weapon if you're like...
And so that's inspiration. And then intuition is the essence itself moving up or entering something. So it's also what Henry Bergson says about intuition, but it's that thing of the essence itself dislodging. And so you have an object, like I can study fucking, this is an object. I study it by seeing it. I can see the front of it, but I can't see behind it. And when I turn around to look at it, in unveiling the back, I lose
the front,
the other side. So I can never fully see it. Intuition penetrates into the essence of it, and I understand it at its essential nature, the essence of things. And so through intuition, I intuitionally grasp the essential nature of a thing. And so this can be, this is then like when people spontaneously meditate, and then through their meditation, they like Rene Guénon, they just become a giga metaphysician, and they just have a perfect understanding of cosmology or something. It's like your understanding of cosmology is like, you've read, Book of Ezekiel, you've read a lot of like cosmological texts, but then your esoteric intuition is just chiseled, and you can just a priori understand the cosmos.
You do agree with me though that there is an innate hierarchy to nature, and that obviously there are people born more intuitive than other people. For example,
100%.
Women are more intuitive than men in general, right? Or for example, this is just baseline facts about reality. can't seem to ignore. But okay, fascinating. Let's see. Any other questions here? The people are referring to you as the Shaniqua Slayer, which is very funny because we refer to Shaniqua as this archetypal. She's a woman who reads tarot cards on YouTube Live and has a lot to say about it. People are referring to you as the Shaniqua Slayer, which is very.
I'll take that. That'll be my subtitle.
Aquarius is a hollow egg. I have no idea what these people are saying. Question: are there any organized religions left that offer a proper introduction to esoteric practice? I guess an extension from that is, which religion or mystic school do you think is the best esoteric practice, or the closest? Do you think, for example, Eastern Orthodoxy has more esoteric mysticism in it than Catholicism, than Protestantism?
Yes. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
These systems are not self-initiatory, kind of where like Valentin Tomberg or Gurdjieff have given us a device so beyond the grave we can still connect to them. These are, you need a master. And the problem is who's a master? Because, you go to a Buddhist school and it's like, this is a true lineage. And then it's like, oh yeah, Chogyam Trungpa, he was like bumming a bunch of his students behind the scenes. And it's like, maybe he's a crazy wisdom master. He was doing Tantra, okay? And it's like, dog, you got some problems. Amazing guy, though. And I actually still recommend his book, Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism. But here's the thing. Who's a master? Real masters are not in the temples. You'll actually find the closer someone gets to actual mastery in that system, the mainline temples, they actually disagree with more and more. And it's not like necessarily a perennialist things like they'll agree with other religions. It's more that they just kind of go into nature. So yeah, there's an Orthodox monk that's like done the Philokalia and is, has apotheosis or something. But he's like not even in Mount Athos, like main temple. He's like, actually, Mount Athos is like a bunch of different temples, but he's like in a specific cave somewhere. Yes. And there's like 3 guys that know about him, and those guys have circles of students. And maybe you might be lucky enough to find one of those students in a temple that you happen to go to.
Right.
But there'll be a bunch of other guys who'll be like, that guy's weird. Don't talk to him. We're the mainline stuff. You should read. You should be reading this. You should be doing this.
So almost by definition, you need to get away from organized religion in order to have that
It is real in Orthodoxy, in Vajrayana Buddhism, even in some yogic schools. There are real masters, but you have to understand you are not the main character, and you're not going to end up at the foot of. You're probably not going to end up at the main foot of the master, bro. You're like your 7 cycle separation. It's like you got to be so freaking lucky to get Carlos Castanedaed. I get so mad. There's this one Taoist book called freaking Entering the Dragon Gate.
Entering the Dragon Gate. Okay.
Yeah, it's a biography of Wang Liping. It's actually a good intro to esoteric Taoism, but it makes me so angry because literally he's a kid, and literally 3 Taoist sorcerers knock on his parents' door and say like, "Hey, yo, astrology sent us here. Your son's got the son's got the juices.
Yeah,
let us come with us." And just he gets Carlos Castanedaed by 3 Don Juans into the mountains, and they just teach him sorcery, all while the communist revolution is going on, and he keeps it secret. Then just comes back down and is like, "Hey guys, And they can like they can turn invisible and shit, so they like never get caught. And it's like,
This is called Enter the Dragon's Gate. Did you say?
No, it's a wild story. It's a wild story.
I need to. Yeah, that sounds
actually good intro to Taoism.
Wow. Okay.
Because people are like, oh, Taoism, just read the Tao Te Ching, and it's like, sure, if you just like philosophy.
Richard, while we've got you here, is there anything you want to plug? Is there anything you want to promote? Is there anything you want to shill? Is there anything you want to tell people about? Any like revelations that have come to you in a dream that you feel like people need to know? Like just anything, literally anything.
Abbas the Alchemist, if you're watching this, please contact me. Come on, man. We've been trying to connect. It just keeps failing.
Fuck, that's brilliant.
And also connect with American Esoteric.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah, I'd love to talk to him. Yeah, that's fantastic. Guys, check out Richard's channel. It's No More Hilux 69 on Twitter. That's so good. Like, fuck yeah, absolutely brilliant. And yeah, dude, I just want to say thank you so much for making the time for coming on and doing this. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. I could literally autistically sit here and pick your brains for hours. I'm gonna invite you to a group chat shortly. I'm sure there are people in there who want to molest you physically, but just great talking. Just great talking to you, man. Like, and thank you to everybody who donated in the chat. Heaps of fucking new members and gifted subs. Really appreciate it. Fuck yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much, man.
No problem. Anytime.
Really appreciate it. All right.